Hey dog people. At the top of this episode, I want to give a trigger warning. In this story, you're going to hear about abusive training techniques. Welcome to Dog Training Bytes. The show where canine professionals share their key takeaways, big aha moments, and hardest lessons learned from working with dogs. I'm Mattison, certified dog trainer and behavior consultant, and dogs are my life. Every day, I get to coach guardians and other trainers into a deeper understanding of canine behavior. But let's face it, sometimes dog training really bites. And that's okay, because when it does, we learn a lot. This podcast is all about sharing the lessons learned from experience, because the stories of when it got tough or when we made a mistake, that's when we learn the lessons worth learning. And it's time we share those with the world. I'll be talking to dog trainers and other pet professionals about times that working with dogs, well, bit. Not literally. Maybe literally. What's most important here on this show, what did they walk away with? What did they learn? How did it shape their approach today? Welcome to Dog Training Bytes, the show where pet professionals share personal lessons that you won't find in any textbook. Today, I'm speaking with Gwenyn Powers. Gwenyn is the founder of Empowered Canine Solutions, where she blends her expertise in behavior and health to make dog training more accessible and community focused. She got her start working with shelter dogs while finishing her undergrad, and now specializes in behavior modification, especially reactivity. Gwenyn is passionate about creating low-cost virtual resources that support both dogs and their humans in building safer, more connected lives together. Hey, Gwenyn, thank you so much for coming on today.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I am just so thrilled that this project makes it easier for me, I feel like, to be able to reach out and start these relationships and have these conversations. Not that I couldn't just, hey, I really want to talk to you, but it gives me
Yeah.
a little bit more of an opportunity. So I'm just really grateful to have this chance to chat with you and to see what message you have for the dog people out there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and dog people are a special kind of people, and it's
There
so
are
nice
people.
to connect in a place that's not just messaging through Instagram.
It's true. I know it's nice to see your face and have an actual real-time
hmm
conversation.
hmm
So to kick it off, why don't you tell me and the dog people out there about your personal dog or dogs?
Oh, okay. I love this question. I could talk about him literally all the time, but people tell me to just shut up. So his name is Coda. He's an Aussie. I was told he was going to be a mini, and 56 pounds later, he's not a mini, but
Oh
that's
my gosh.
fine. I love him so much. I got him at just a weird time in my life. I had a dog with an ex-boyfriend that got taken away from me really suddenly, and I just had
Mm.
this like piece of my, that was our first dog that wasn't a childhood dog I had with my family. And I just had this piece of my heart like taken away. And I wasn't really looking for a dog right away, but my friend actually surprised me for Christmas with another Aussie, and I wasn't prepared at all because
Oh
I was
my
still mourning
goodness.
the loss of my other dog. And then here Coda comes, and he is the most genuine, personable, just like you look into his eyes and you're like, you're a human. I swear.
Oh.
I was going through some health issues at the time as well. I have a heart arrhythmia, and he was so smart and just naturally bonded to me that it flipped the script for me. I had just gotten into dog training. I started doing task training with him, service dog training with him, and our bond is just, it is beyond what I could have expected. So it was all, everything happens for a reason kind of thing with Coda. And we are considering getting another dog, but with his service dog training, it's something I don't really want to mess with too much. Yeah.
How old is Coda now?
He's 5.5.
Okay. And is he a
Yeah.
working service dog with you?
Yes.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. I bet that brings an additional element to your bond and relationship that is like probably hard to put into words.
Yes. And I might talk about it a little bit later, but that bond that we have, as well as his struggles with reactivity, it's very interesting. And it really shines a light on Dogs are just like people. They're multifaceted. They can have a talent, they can be really good at something, and they can struggle emotionally at times. Self-regulation, they might have environmental triggers. They just the way that they walk through the world is really similar to humans. Something may have happened that triggered something. It doesn't mean that's their personality. They just struggle the way a person would.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there's a back and forth push of humanizing dogs, of, oh, wanting to be empathetic and understanding, but oh, now we're anthropomorphizing. And I do think it's a fine line, but at the end of the day, we're all animals. We're all mammals.
Yeah.
And so there
Hmm.
has to be similarities to the way
Hmm.
that we navigate the world.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I'm super excited to hear the story that you brought for us today.
Okay. So I have so many stories, but
That's
I
like the
like
most common response I get is you need me to pick one?
I know it was really hard to pick one, but I wanted to pick one that I feel like really did impact the way it opened my eyes. It was the first thing that opened my eyes to the dog training industry,
Yeah.
which is, I think, the most important thing to talk about. Right? We all love dogs, we can talk about behavior and individual differences, but the industry is the main thing.
Mhm.
So I was just starting out in dog training. I started in specialty. So I was working with other trainers in personal protection, service dog work, police dog work. And so I started really niche
That's
and
really interesting. It's a very different
mhm,
journey.
it is very different. I had some exposure in rescue and shelter life, and then I immediately went into the specialties. So I was trained under a few different trainers in my area. And one day I was introduced to a gal. She seemed to be adored by everybody. She had what I would consider higher status. She was ex-military. She trained canines for military purposes. So she seemed a real badass, and I was so ecstatic to be meeting with her, working with her. We worked for a few weeks, and then one day she was like, "Hey, I hear you have an Aussie." I'm like, "Yeah, I do." You want to bring him to my Aussie farm? And I was like, "What's an Aussie farm? That's
Mhm.
interesting." So I'm like, "Heck yeah, sure." So we go out. She lives in a little rural area. I show up with my dog one day. She's got 10 plus Aussies. I was like, "This really is an Aussie farm."
Wow.
And yeah, and so Coda and I, we walk around her property. She's got a lot of property. We talk about dog training stuff. It's decently pleasant. Her dogs seem behaved, but there was just something a little bit off with each dog. I just wasn't feeling like it was normal dog behavior. So then we go back a few more times. And again, she seems perfectly pleasant. I know that
What was
people rave about her and
what
her
was the
training.
purpose and the function of these visits? Was it like desensitization for Coda, like a new environment? What was your motivation to go and be there with him?
Yeah, he had no dog friends, and he actually, before he came to me, was on a farm in Spokane,
Mm,
and he was herding sheep. He was living out his species specific needs, and I
yeah,
was trying so hard to fulfill that and recreate that here in my
got
area.
it.
So taking him to the farm, he was able to run around with all the Aussies. She had a tractor guy that would just go all around the farm, and the Aussies would herd it. So he had a great time there. He also had a few kerfuffles with some of the more challenged male dogs that, in my opinion, now were just insecure, but at the time seemed very alpha and aggressive. So we went back a few times, and then the next time we went, there was a really big fight between two of her male dogs. And of course, there's a lot of Aussies together. There's horses on the other side, there's sheep. There's so many things that could go wrong. It makes
Yeah.
sense that there's a disagreement between the dogs. And she pulls out her taser and she presses the on button so it makes that loud zap sound. And it scared me half to death. I was like, oh my goodness. And the dogs immediately stopped. And I was like, oh, that noise probably just interrupted the fight. She goes, oh no, I tased them. And I'm thinking to myself, oh Lord. What do you mean you tase them just like when a fight's happening? Or and she's like, oh no, every dog when I first get them, if they do something that I find undesirable, I tase them and they never do it again. That's how corrections work. That's how training works. And yeah, I know, just like your face, my jaw was on the floor. And I was like, I bring my dog here. People bring their family dogs to you to train. People love you. Like, I'm thinking, wow, I found myself a great mentor. You have so much experience. She's much older than me. She's been in the industry much longer than me. And then she added to that, and again, at the time, I didn't know as much. So she was talking about how she uses a taser, and that makes sense then, I guess, looking at some of the, I would say, not natural respondent behavior from her dogs. And she would like, they would be out in the field, and she would yell a command like, "Attend hut," and all of her dogs would stop, sit, and look at her and freeze. And then she's, "Okay, break." And at the time, I thought it was really cool. But then after knowing how she got that behavior, I was like,
Mm.
okay, that's messed up. The other thing she did was alpha rolls, and that was my first introduction to that term. And
Yeah.
she said, "Oh no, that's Jasper. He's my really dominant male, but don't worry, he knows that I'm the alpha." I'm like, how does he know that? "Oh, I fought him and I won." And I'm thinking to
Yep.
myself, "Oh my goodness, this woman's cuckoo." So then I stopped going, obviously, to the Aussie farm because I didn't want to get murdered out there, and I thought that was really weird and unethical. And then the next few days, we go back to the training facility that she was working with a training partner in our area with, and I'm starting to see the pattern with everybody now. And I'm thinking, these people have been, they have a lot of respect in the community. They've been in the community for a long time, training for a long period of time. And I'm just now realizing they're messed up. And they will charge people $4,000 to abuse their dog. So
Yeah.
that was really eye-opening for me. And I started creating some distance between myself and at least that particular community of dog trainers. And then I started seeing that pattern everywhere. I started looking for like the language of what language
Mm-hmm.
are trainers using to figure out their methods. And then just jumping forward to the present, this trainer is still used a lot and is very popular in our area. There's been a movement from trainers in my area now to protest this trainer and try and bring some just clarity to the community so people are
Yeah.
understanding this is what's going on behind closed doors. And since then, we've had individuals close to us get death threats and letters from said trainer.
Wow.
Yes, to silence and stop talking about the training. And we had a gal that got a he attempted to sue for like defamation and all of that. So it's a crazy kind of situation in our area, but of course, what's unfortunate is that it's not uncommon.
It's really not. This is not the first time that I've heard a similar story. Won't be the last, even though I wish that it was. But the
Exactly.
exact phrase that you said of behind closed doors, and that is the scariest thing of, in my opinion, especially board and trains in our industry, is the lack of transparency. And that's something that it's actually one of the core values of my business, of my training, is having full transparency because you're not wrong. This is one of the most damaging things to our industry because things like that get swept under the rug or put in some sort of category of justification, right? Of we got the behavior that we wanted. And I had this conversation literally yesterday with my husband of, and this is probably a, I don't know, generalized high level statement, and it goes back to science with the big S. I believe, and I personally, like my personal belief is that the results that we get, how we got there is as important, sometimes more important. And just getting to the result of a desired behavior or removing a desired behavior, that's not the whole picture for me. That's never going to be enough for me. How we get there matters just as much. And I want to feel that ethical choices were made along the journey to get to that result. Otherwise, it's actually not a result I'm interested in. And I know a lot of people feel the same way. And what's really problematic in the industry is that people are being told, no, your feelings don't matter. Shove that aside because we need to do this with the dog. And I'm here and you're here to say, no, there's another option. There is actually an alternative to where you can feel good about the methods that you're using because it does matter. How we get to the result matters.
I totally agree with that. And I think not only do people focus on the result, but I think that there is a weird justification on a lot of folks' parts to bring ethics into the matter of justifying what I find unethical methods. The increase in euthanasia rates, the amount of dogs in shelters, getting to that end result, people use ethics to justify whatever means necessary. Words like train the dog in front of you, or not everything will work the way you train for one dog with another dog. Everybody's different. Not one approach or one size fits all approach is appropriate. Yes, it is. When we're talking about dog behavior, we're talking about ethics. Just because there is an increase of dogs in a shelter doesn't mean that the sky still isn't blue. Behavior is behavior. Science is science. We have it for a reason. We study it for a reason. And I think that's how people, especially shelter dogs, get taken advantage of. You get trainers coming in like, all right, I'll get this guy adaptable. I'll yank him around a little bit, teaching that I'm the alpha. And then you get a shutdown dog. Just a
Hmm.
client that I did a consult with yesterday. He was like, "Oh yeah, I picked the dog up and flipped it on its back in the shelter because I heard that's what you're supposed to do to see how the dog responds, see if they're aggressive or not." And he was very submissive, so I knew he was perfect. And then I brought him home. He was terrified of me. I'm like, "Yeah, so that's called shutdown behavior. You just flooded him. And now
Hmm.
that he's out of that environment, he was traumatized by what you did, and of course he's scared of you." So I think it's something that is really difficult, at least for trainers like us in the industry, to move the needle when there is a lot of manipulation and, like we talked about, not a lot of transparency. So the general public continues to be taken advantage of, and it really is a buyer beware industry. So I think we just really need to figure out a way to implement a few more regulations and policies.
And there's some movement there, certainly not, and this is speaking to the United States, certainly not in every state, but there is a state that is putting forward legislation to
Mhm,
require a licensure for trainers
mhm.
to operate within the state. So I think things are headed in a good direction. I personally feel legislation is only part of it, and we need a
Yes.
cultural shift, a
Mhm,
mindset cultural shift in the way that we look at living with dogs in the modern world. And it feels like an uphill battle until you bump into people that are fighting the same fight. And then it doesn't feel quite so hard when you can link
mhm.
arms with people and just have a community that has the same sort of true north. Because I agree with you. I think that the pendulum swung in the opposite direction with the shelter overpopulation crisis. And now we're seeing, I think justification is a really good word. And like, I get it. I get the goal and the desire to reduce euthanasia and to reduce overpopulation and all of that. But if we're using that to justify using harsh methods, suppressing behavior for the sake of adoption, right? Like those things are not okay and they're going to harm the industry as a whole.
No, I agree with that. I think that we're seeing now, and I have a focus in epidemiology, so tracking patterns and surveillance of novel issues that impact the public. And I have an emphasis in One Health, so looking at the way that humans and animals and our shared environment, how that's interconnected and intersected. So I think that it is going to catch up, like you said. We are tracking that. We are seeing an increase in aggressive behavior, and we can connect it. And we can use that as justification for looking at dog training licensure. In Illinois, I worked on some health policy, and we were able to reach out to some stakeholders in the community. And there was a dog training licensure act, that's the name of the bill, that was introduced for Illinois policy. And it was shut down the first time, and one of the projects I worked with my mentor for Illinois Public Health Association is reintroducing that bill and amending it to rid it of any exceptions to dog training and whatever regulation that the dog training licensure committee, so it'd form a committee, would look for. And those exceptions are police dog training, or in if the person or the trainer can justify how they needed to use aversives in that situation. So there were a lot of exceptions in the original language. We amended it and recreated it to rid any language that had those exceptions. It's actually still in the process of being introduced, and it's looking pretty good. We have a lot
Okay.
of support from the community. So, yes, I will keep you posted on that. But there
Yeah,
is
please
there
do.
is there is a movement that's happening, starting small, county to county, state to state, and I think we can build.
That's great news. And I know that you are one of many working on this in their own little pocket of the world, but not enough. So we
Yeah.
definitely like to see more people interested in seeing this type of
Mhm.
oversight, which is really designed to keep dogs from being abused, neglected. Something that I really believe in is the regulation of board and trains. I think that's one of the first places that we should start if we have to pick and choose, because
Yeah.
that's where we see tragedies, like true tragedies.
Yeah.
And there's really no reason or excuse for that. That's something to me that is a marketing ploy that is ending in dogs dying in the most extreme cases, which is not every case by any means. But I think if you're anything like me, you probably hear a lot of folks who, at the very least, find them to be pretty unsuccessful.
Yes, and people, it again, it takes advantage of people in need. I need my dog gone. I feel that I can't help my dog myself, so I'm
Mhm.
outsourcing it because that's what should work, right? If it lives in someone else's environment and it lives in the specialty person's talent. And the truth is, anyone can train their dog. And
Anyone can train their dog.
they weren't given the easiest first preventative measure of training. They weren't given the education first. So when people come to us and they want us to do board and trains, which happens, I swear to you, every single day. No, can we just do a board and train with you? Can you just keep the dog for 2 weeks and train it and then bring it back to me when it's trained? No. We'll start with owner education first. And we make that accessible because we realize that's difficult for folks, especially
Yeah.
because go to the internet, sure, but you can also count on the internet confusing you even further or
Oh, the
bringing you
internet
to,
is a dangerous place these days. Like it used
yeah.
to just be, it was a little bit overwhelming. Now,
Mm,
any attempt to research will leave you drowning in a sea of misinformation, conflicting
yeah.
information too. People are so confused.
So confused. I think every single person who's come to us ready to train their dog, committed for private one-on-one training is like, hey, so what the heck do we do? I feel bad. I don't want to put a prong collar on my dog, but this trainer said that I have to for reactivity. And then this other trainer said that I shouldn't. So I don't know what to do.
Yeah. And honestly, I think what it takes is answering the question behind the question, like helping these people understand what it is they're actually asking. Talk to them like they're intelligent people and help them get there. Help them understand what we
Mm.
understand. If I figured it out, anyone can figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's insane how many times we just forget that simple step. And I think
Yeah.
that it's just, I think it is a sign that dog training, the industry, is reflective of human health, human wellness, and it's
Mm.
only as healthy as we are. It's a reflection that things are really complicated. We have environmental health, we have social determinants of health. We see the domino effect that one thing can have on an entire species. We see the humanization of dogs. We see the power dynamic that humans and dogs have and how that's evolved over time. So you can just pick one thing, environmental health, one thing that's happened in the area, say a natural disaster happened, we see the domino
Mm.
effect of how that affects dogs' health and wellness, our
Yeah.
ability to help our dogs, the kind of training we're going to source out, training that's probably not ethical or effective in the long run, quick fixes because we have a lot of dogs in the shelter that just need to be pumped back out. I think we can see in any pick one piece and just start there and you unfold it. You can see how complicated the industry is, but it is still simple in the sense that we can capture behavior that we like, we can shape behavior. Once you have that solid communication between owner or handler and dog, you can pretty much accomplish anything. Aside from neurological or health or deeper rooted issues in a dog, which we often ignore, most dogs can be trained to do anything. And we can modify most behavior using simple methods that people just don't have access to.
With the two key ingredients of consistency and a little bit of patience.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Gwenyn, is there anything else that you would like the dog people out there to know about you and what you do?
I would say I probably already mentioned it, but I'm a huge public health nerd. I love public health. I think public health is everything. And when we train dogs and people, when we're starting with the dog and train the dog, we like to get at the root cause. So we consider everything that makes up behavior, environmental health, social health, physical health. And then for the person, we think about the same thing. How do they have access to this information? What's their individual threshold for training? And how can we bring low cost access and education to effective dog training and behavior? That's one of the things that we're moving toward. You're probably going to see me advertising a little bit more. We're trying to get a virtual community up and running, and we just want, I know everyone's got a virtual community these days, but we really want to have all of our educational pieces available, very, very accessible, low cost. We're going to have 24/7
Yeah.
coaching available, which I love. I'm
Wow.
so excited about
That's
for people in
so
the
cool.
community. Yeah, so if there's a
Yeah.
problem, you just hop right on it and we talk through it. And I want to be that first point of contact for folks before they get further confused on the internet. So that's something that's coming up. And yeah, I think that's everything.
I love that. I am so excited to see that. You can connect with Gwenyn on Instagram at Empowered Canines, and you can find more information and a link to her work in the show notes. Thanks for joining us in the world of Dog Training Bites, where every challenge brings a lesson worth sinking our teeth into. See you next time. Dog Training Bites was created, produced, and edited by Mattison Simpson. You can connect with me on Instagram at Dog Training Bytes, that's BYTES, and at Freed by Training. For information on today's guest and resources for help with your dog or dog training education, visit www.dogtrainingbytes.stream. Looking for more? Listen to my other show, Unpacked, a clinical dog training podcast co-hosted by Sailor Jerry the dog trainer and produced by Straight Up Dog Talk LLC.